I want to talk about tone and the importance of tone. You could also say tact, you could also say demeanor, you could also say the way you present yourself. See, what happened, and this came into my mind as I was involved with some online conversations in quotes. They were dangerously close to debates. And what happens in a debate often is people become so attached to the argument and making their point that they lose sight of the objective, which is to sway the other person or other people to an understanding and an appreciation of their perspective. And when you sink in and turn it into a debate, which is kind of a battle, you stop listening, you start fighting, and it becomes aggressive, it becomes a fight. And I noticed this as I was reading these posts that were directed towards me, and people were relaying perspectives that were ones that I might actually, in fact, upon a lot of research, agreed with. But there was so much anger in the conversation that I had no choice but to feel defensive. I was given no option to agree. Well, I'm sure I could have agreed, but my first reaction was that bristling up and wanting to defend myself and wanting to, go through their statements that were belittling or negative or false in order to clear my name, instead of going, okay, I recognize there are things that I don't understand in this situation, help me get to an understanding that is parallel or in line with your understanding. I may or may not agree, but at least help me understand what are the issues and thoughts and perspectives that has brought you to this anger place. See how different that is? And I see how this happens, and I know that it goes back to that Course in Miracles idea of would you rather be right or would you rather be happy? And when you get so caught up in being right, you want to win, it doesn't leave a lot of room for a positive outcome all of the time. And so that feeling of righteous indignation is intoxicating. It feels so good to feel like, I am right. But sometimes you have to sacrifice that glorious feeling of righteous indignation if you actually want to be productive, if you want to be solving the problems. Ideally, both sides can get to a place of, hey, I'm letting go of my desire to win and I want to understand. Because when you come to that place, worst case scenario, you go, I disagree. Best case scenario, you go, I hadn't thought about it that way. Thank you for leaving room in this overall conversation for me to change my mind and not feel like I've now lost and I'm a loser or I've betrayed my side. Ideally, there's that, I'm no scholar of these things, but I see on TV when there's negotiations with Asian countries and nations, the interpreter of the SWAT team says, we gotta, make sure that they have the ability to save face. And I think that, that is true for all of us. Who wants to, it's one thing to be a big enough person to say, what you said makes sense. That's a big person. It's a huge person to say, what you say makes sense, and all those negative things you've said about me must be partially true. I'm not willing to do that. Or what I did in this conversation today is I started going through this post, and I started line for line, clarifying. I didn't say that. What I meant was this. And I said, you know what? This will never stop. This is a infinite path towards, troll nightmare dystopian future. The only way to stop this is to recognize that this method of communication is not working. And so I said, hey, just so you know, this tone makes it very difficult to have this conversation. And then some people wrote back and go, you have a problem with the tone? Well, maybe if you looked at the issues, you'd be as angry as we are. And I was like, and maybe if you hold on to that need to be right and that need to feel righteous, you'll never get what you want. Now, it's now been a number of hours since these conversations have happened. I've tried to be as open-minded as possible. I've tried to clarify what is it that I don't understand. And I think that we've gotten to a place where, one, I see the perspective being presented. Two, I agree with a huge part of these arguments that were being attacked at me. And three, I think I've made the case that that anger that was directed towards me is probably due elsewhere, and this would be more productive for all of us if I could be welcomed into the conversation, even if I'm not a zealot for the cause. Along the lines of the importance of tone and the importance of demeanor and the importance of the way that you communicate, you need to recognize that in every dialogue are human beings on both sides. That means the minute you go into a debate, you are now sacrificing some of the ability to get to a solution because the person on the other side has fears and weaknesses and insecurities and defensiveness and ego stuff that you have now triggered, which is now going to add to the wall. As I have gone through my life and been a part of all sorts of professional interactions and meetings and dialogues, and I've been to all sorts of organizational ones, and I think more and more I learned the importance of tact and tone and recognizing that dialogues involve human beings where people need to be heard. Understanding how people communicate and understanding that even if your facts are right, you still need to have a human being embrace them is infinitely important in being able to work with a ton of people. Unless you're a mad genius with an army of flying monkeys and you can impose your will on people, otherwise you have to not just convince people with facts, you have to comfort people by listening and sometimes acknowledging things that you disagree with, getting out of debate mode and into problem-solving mode. So I hope I've conveyed that with a tone of kindness and compassion. I hope that you are spreading your tone of kindness, compassion, openness, appreciation, awe. Thank you for allowing this moment of recalibration so we can all remember to tone our tone to a vibration of positivity, kindness, love. I cannot think of an example where being receptive and open and kind has not been a productive tool. That isn't to say being stepped on and being overly agreeable. It means listening and acknowledging, even if you say, I understand that, I appreciate that, I recognize the effort, the challenge, and the frustration. Unfortunately, I have to do this. So, fortunately, I have to do this. Let's have a hug. Grab yourself by the shoulders. And have some appreciation for this body. This unbelievably magical physical thing. This living organism. This miracle shell that houses our sensation receiving and problem solving and perception, figuring out brain and all of the understanding of who we are and what we are, all the roles and labels we play. And beneath all of that, the outer physical shell and the personality, ego shell, beneath all of that is that divine self, the divine self that wants to listen, that needs to learn to have its place at the table when you have a debate, that it can recognize that in every debate that divine light is shining from both sides of the table. And with that recognition of connection, we are able to hear in a different way. We're able to disagree in a different way. We're able to find resolution rather than winning. So let's take 3 breaths from that place of connection, that recognition of oneness. 3 breaths in through the nose. On behalf of Grandpa Caleb and all the Love Warriors, happy Hug Nation. Thank you. I love you. Namaste.